Hi everyone. Today in social studies, we are going to learn about the invention of the telegraph. You learned about how people were traveling west, but some of their families were still on the east. So they needed a way of communicating or talking with each other. So someone important, and we're going to learn who it was, made this invention called the telegraph so that once people were west, they could talk to their family who was on the east. So I'm going to share my screen with you and we'll read a little bit about what the telegraph was and who invented it. Right? Let me share. Okay. As always, we are going to go to the very end of the PowerPoint and read our think about it question so that we know what we are trying to figure out and what we'll need to write about in our journals once we finish. The first question, who invented the telegraph? What was the name of the person? How did the telegraph work? How did the invention of the telegraph change the way people communicated? So how did this telegraph change the way people talked to each other? Where were telegraph poles placed? Why? And the last one, the telegraph replaced what service as the fastest way to communicate over long distances? So the telegraph was faster than something else that people used to use to communicate. Okay, what was the telegraph faster than? Let's read. All right, the invention of the telegraph. Samuel Morse invented the first electrical telegraph in the United States in 1837. I know right there the answer to the first question. Who invented the first telegraph? Samuel Morse. The telegraph sent electrical signals over a wire between poles. The telegraph system used Morse code. Morse code is a system invented by Samuel Morse, made up of electronic dots and dashes that represent numbers and letters. The telegraph operators translated the code into words. So, we learn here that a person named Samuel Morse invented the telegraph. And in the picture, you can see what the telegraph machine looked like. It looks pretty complicated, but it used something called Morse code. And this was a type of communication that used dots and dashes. And those dots and dashes represented letters that people could put together to read as words. So we're going to see what Morse code looked like. So here you see the alphabet and you see some numbers, and this is what Morse code looked like. So if I was trying to use the letter A, I would do a dot and then a dash. If I wanted to write the word hello, for example, I would look to H. I see H has 4 dots, so I would type in my telegraph machine, dot, 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 and then I would look for what an I was. Well, an I is 2 dots, so then I would add dot, dot, and then someone on the other side of the telegraph, all the way in the west, would be able to understand that I was saying hi. Samuel Morse convinced Congress to give him $10,000 that he needed to build the first telegraph line. Telegraph poles were placed alongside railroad tracks. This made it easy to set up the poles needed to carry the telegraph wires because railroad workers had already cleared the land. The wires ran through most of the settled areas of the United States. By 1861, the invention of the telegraph replaced the Pony Express as the fastest way of communicating long distance. People could now communicate instantly to people in faraway places by sending a telegram rather than sending mail by stagecoach or Pony Express. So here we learn that the telegraph needed poles and wires in order to send those signals. In the picture, you see what one of those poles and wires would have looked like. And we read that these poles were placed along the railroad tracks. Why? Because when they made these railroad tracks, they already cleared the land. They already cut down the trees, and these poles were easy to place up there. It was quicker than having to clear the land all from scratch. They just used what was already cleared by the railroad. And we also read that the telegraph replaced the Pony Express as the fastest way of communicating. The Pony Express was when men would ride on horses from the east to the west carrying letters. And it took a long time because they had to get all the way from the east to the west. But now, instead of riding on horses across the country, they could communicate instantly, right away, through the telegram. So the telegraph replaced the Pony Express as the fastest way of communicating. And that was the end of our PowerPoint. I'm going to read our questions one more time so that we can start thinking about the answers. Who invented the telegraph? How did the telegraph work? What did it use to send its signals? How did the invention of the telegraph change the way people communicated? It made something easier. How did it change the way people communicated? Where were telegraph poles placed and why? And the telegraph replaced what service as the fastest way to communicate over long distances? All right, you guys, I hope that you are enjoying learning about westward expansion. We are now that our travelers have gotten to the West, they are done with westward expansion. They've made it there after those long journeys, and now they are learning ways to communicate. They're using their inventions to make life easier. Life is good for them now that they're west. So I hope that you've really enjoyed learning about westward expansion, and maybe you are excited to learn more about history. Have a great day.